So it's only a matter of time, as I've said continuously, before reality, well, comes calling on a lot of these Brexiteers. And a lot of these chief Brexiteers, when they are asked genuine, actual questions by people with serious concerns, they sort of fall apart and really give nonsensical answers or no answers. Remember, these are the people who caused Brexit, who wanted Brexit for years. But when it comes to actually finding solutions to the current problems, they don't have any answers. You know, we brought this up a couple of weeks ago with Daniel Hannan. The guy spent 25 years arguing against the EU, but when he finally gets what he wants, he has no ideas to the problems he has created. And this is just another one. So this comes from Evolve Politics. So the irritatingly blind optimism of leading Brexiteers was paid to on the LBC radio today by Clarion, an express van driver who has seen firsthand the untold mayhem that will be created for British trade if we leave the customs union, as the Tories are seemingly intent to do. On LBC, the arch-Tory Brexiteer Jacob Rees-Mogg was in the middle of his usual vague Brexit assurances of everything will be just fine when his fantasy assurances were disrupted by a stroke of reality. It was painted by Clarion, who has crossed every single border in Europe at one point or another as an express van driver. Clarion initially asked Jacob Rees-Mogg, will the express transport industry survive outside the customs union and the single market when we become a third country? As Jesus turned water into wine, Jacob Rees-Mogg used his received pronunciation to turn his vague nothing talk into something that sounded as though it should somehow be authoritative. So, this is from him. So it would be very surprising if it didn't. There are express deliveries between Switzerland and the European Union, and Switzerland remains a third country. I think there are a lot of scare stories around how businesses will operate, but you can get express deliveries from the UK to the United States. It is perfectly possible to implement and work through customs procedures in a highly efficient and streamlined way. Yet Rees-Mogg's Brexit bluster was not enough to fend off a schooling a schooling straight from the book of I have actually seen how this works, not just read about it and hoped. Clarion launched with a relieving right. He then continued, I have done the job to Switzerland before. I got sent down what was called a Route 1 at Customs House in Dover. I was there for 7 hours, then I got to the Swiss border. I was there for 5 hours. This was not a frictionless border. The Swiss border is not frictionless. You have to stop. You have to get out of your van or vehicle. You have to go up 4 flights of stairs to find your customs agent. You have to get your Tier 1 or Tier 2 process form. Then you have to get it stamped by the French, the Swiss. Then you can come in. The same applies to the customs house in Dover. There's no infrastructure there. Of course, Jacob tried to clap back, deferring Dover, but neither Clarion nor the host Nick Ferrari were having any of it. After trying to say that it was Dover's fault, that Dover needs to update its infrastructure, Ferrari asked Jacob, will we suffer the problems that the gentleman did in Switzerland? The Swiss have been doing this for years. They clearly haven't done very well. In the end, Rees-Mogg tries referring to other borders elsewhere around Europe, but Clarion had been to them all. The two of them battled back and forth until Jacob was left to stutter. There are many efficient borders globally, and that is what we are trying to do. But the whole thing was very entertaining and showed that Jacob Rees-Mogg's Brexit rhetoric to be nothing more than oversimplified, wholly misleading bluster, which you can watch below. And I'll leave a link to the article which has the video in it below. So the debate about what will happen on the ground for Britain's trade after Brexit is one that does not seem to cease. Brexiteers on one side make all sorts of allusions to mimicking countries whose infrastructure have been developed outside the European Union, while they seem to be constantly undermined by claims of those who have actually seen how trade works inside and outside the EU every single day. For example, the Tories recently sold advertising space to the port of Dover. It was immediately used to tell everyone what a devastating effect Brexit will have on trade through the port. Yes, the government that we have entrusted with Brexit, with Britain's biggest political crisis since World War II, doesn't have any idea what they are doing. What could possibly go wrong? And that's the sad situation we are in. Like I say, go watch the full interaction for yourself. I'll leave a link to it down below, but this is what we are facing. The absolute denial of experts and people who have expert opinion, and they just don't seem to want it. You know, Britain will not survive outside the EU. And by that, I don't mean it will just fall into chaos. I basically mean that economically, we're going to be nothing on the world stage. And yeah, you might get these trade deals, but it will not replace the one we had with the EU. We will get bullied by other and bigger countries, and as I've said continuously, you will have to follow someone's rules. And as I've also brought up time and time again, look at the trade negotiations that are going currently on between the UK and the US. The US have insisted that the trade deal is carried out behind closed doors, so you will not know what trade deal we have got from the US, what the consequences of this have been. And we've discussed this in other videos, such as what will happen to NICE, the chlorinated chicken, the forced relaxing of our standards, our own actual people, countries and companies in this country will not be able to compete with the lower standards of goods coming into the US. We've done through this all before, but people just still refuse to listen and think that some sort of fantasy island is just, you know, only a year away. It could be further from the truth, unfortunately, but they're just not interested. They don't want to listen. And this is, again, the Brexiteers have no one to blame but themselves for everything come March 2019. So, and they are uniquely responsible for this. You know, we've already discussed how on that a couple of days ago, in fact yesterday, how uniquely responsible they are, because they completely give up any acts of responsibility for what they have done. You know, it's not my job, because I voted Remain, to provide solutions to the problems they've caused. I don't have to get behind Brexit at all. And even after Brexit, I will fully support us rejoining the EU. Because, hey, you're about to see what happens. So, good luck, guys. It's all on you now. Always has been. So, enjoy the consequences of being poorer, and everything else that goes with it.